been a while. So I had planned more Halloween content this entire week, but I have my grades end of the marking period specifically to be worrying about. So, it's Halloween. I got a shit ton of candy. I'm happy with that. But I feel sad that I haven't given you anything special during this Halloween time except for one unboxing video. And that's not very Halloweeny, being that I do it pretty much all the time, right? Well, your good friend has figured out something fun to do. Halloween's a great day to tell stories, whether they be true or false. In this case, let me tell you a story about something that happened to me a long time ago. Well, it's an ongoing group of events, but that lead to this story. Sorry, I malfunctioned for a second. Where were we? Ah, yes. I was here to tell you the story of how I'm pretty sure I saw Slenderman, or even something scarier.
First thing I'd like to say is I apologize for any background noise you might be hearing. My family is upstairs, and they tend to like to watch their loud TV shows and chat over the phone at this time. Anyway, to first understand the story, you must know the layout of my old middle school. My old middle school was right next to a great forest called, well, I'm not going to give the name, obviously, or you're going to figure out what school I used to go to. But the fact is, we had long, tall, ancient trees, perfectly tall, just like the ones in Slenderman's game. And because of that, I had spent a short amount of time prior to this, well, after this event actually, trying to see if Slenderman would show up. But that's not the story I'm trying to tell. You see, the forest doesn't directly touch the school. There's at least a perimeter of hangout space that we have near the school, which we are allowed to go to in the morning. And the rest of it, the rest of the forest that is, surrounds our many sports fields. But to get to said forest, there is an iron fence that is quite tall and covered in barbed wire, so it is impossible to cross through it unless you can access one of the many secured gates towards the outside. Or you walk around the edges, which are very far away from the school entrances and would take forever, and you'd be easily spotted if you attempted to go past the woods and get near the school. Anyway, so me and my class were having gym that day, and we were outside because the day was quite warm. And being that it was the fall, the leaves were nice and crunchy and had fallen from the trees, so they were barren and black. As I stared into the forest, now resting after my turn of kickball and unsuccessfully trying to make it to third base, I noticed how there was something peculiar about the forest. I kept looking and I noticed that there was a figure very far away who was watching us. As I kept on staring, the more I stared, the more I could recognize the clothing, but I couldn't recognize any facial features. He just seemed like a white blob with a black suit on. Upon getting this thought of a white faceless creature with a black suit, I immediately began to panic. My immediate thought was Slenderman, a popular character around that time. So I told my two friends who were also taking a break to move away from the forest, and they didn't, like dumb effers. I kid you not. What they did instead was literally walk up to the fence, go into the nearest pile of leaves, and start humping and kissing and making out. Instead of, they're the type of people that would have died in a horror movie, but luckily for us, gym basically ended shortly after. And after that, I began to walk far away from said gate. And as I'm walking away from said gate and walking back to class, as I'm heading to the path that leads a few a less than a mile, but a very long distance away from the school, I get a good view of the tree line for the first time. And as I look, I notice something. The trees are swaying, and black vines cover every inch of the branches. But the thing is, there wasn't any wind, not a breeze, and yet the trees were swaying, and the black vines seemed to twitch in the air. After that, I became immediately panicked. I began to think about the man who had been standing there, who had disappeared from my sight the second I lost eye contact with him. About what that it was Slenderman. But now that I'm older, I realize that there are much worse things that that man could have been than Slenderman. I mean, we were middle schoolers, and this was a public school. The worst thing that could have happened would not be Slenderman. The worst thing that could have happened is if it was just a normal adult man. Because sometimes what adults want to do to you is much, much more scary than what a creature would do to you. I am not going to explain what I mean. Because if you're old enough to understand what I mean, then there's no point in me telling you. And if you're too young to be watching a horror video, well then, I definitely am not telling you. But, in anyways, I completely forgot about this event until a few years later when my sister came home and she told me how she was freaked out because, oh god damn it, because she was freaked out because, well, she saw large black tendrils shake the trees and a man in the woods. So, this is a true story. I'd just like to state that before, ending the video. And if you have any more questions about the story, please, ask away in the comment section. And that's about it. Thank you for watching. I love you.